Hey everyone, have you ever been camping when it's completely windy and you don't have any stakes on your tent, for your tent? I know I have. The first couple of times I went camping, I actually borrowed a tent from friends, and hey Kelly. I borrowed some tents from some friends, and I actually didn't have any stakes or poles or stakes in the tents, and so now every time I go camping, I make sure that I check the tent like 4 times before I go, so that I have stakes. And on a windy day like this, you really need them. So I'm Amy Hope, and today we're here talking about Houston Outdoor Live camping.
I'm Kelly Howard, and I'm with Bayou City Outdoors.
And today what we're going to do is we're going to go through so that you don't make the same mistakes that we have made over the years.
We've made plenty of them.
And we're going to give you all of our tips and tricks and everything. And so Kelly's going to start by setting up the tent.
All right, and Amy's going to tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Okay, so a lot of times when people are setting up tents, their first inclination is to put the stakes in first. But you actually don't want to do that. You want to lay down the tarp that she has on the ground. It's called your footprint. The footprint's going to help protect the bottom of the tent. It's also going to help keep the moisture out of the tent, and it'll provide a little bit of protection from the warmth and the cold from the ground. Next, you lay out your tent so that it covers the entire footprint. If the footprint is laying outside of the tent area, if it rains, then the water is going to flood right underneath the tent, and you might get water in it. So you want to make sure that they're lined up. So then the next thing that you do is you put the poles in. If it's really windy, you can stake down the tent a little bit, kind of loosely, just so that it doesn't blow away. But in general, you put the poles in first, and then the tent, and then the stakes.
What you might mention?
What's that?
Some tents have clips, some tents have sleeves.
Yes. So each tent that you set up, the poles and how you put the poles on the tent are going to be different. So sometimes there are sleeves in the middle and then clips along the edges. Sometimes they have all clips and sometimes they have all sleeves. And actually the newer REI tents now have one pole, whereas Kelly is setting up 2 diagonal poles. A lot of them, the newer ones, are starting to have one long pole that shoots out in different directions. And on those, you just snap them in. So you'll have to read the directions. Usually they come with directions and show you how to put the poles in. But those are different types of ways to put up those are different types of poles you might see. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so we're not there yet, but when she gets that set up, there's going to be stakes and wires hanging out. And so what I have here is just some rope. This rope actually glows in the dark. And so what you can do is you can outline your tent so that you don't trip over the stakes or the guide wires at night when you're trying to get back to your campsite. And then some other stuff. Knock that over. In addition to the regular tent that you could use, you can also use a hammock tent. So I love this thing. This is my hammock tent. I take this everywhere. One thing to remember when you're sleeping with a hammock tent is you might not always have trees to set it up on. So what I do when I'm camping with a hammock tent is, and I'm not familiar with the area, I'll check the weather. If I know for sure it's not going to rain or rain very, very hard, I will still use this hammock tent because if I don't have trees, I can just use it as a tarp and kind of just put my sleeping bag on top of it and just use it that way. But they're really cool. So they're enclosed And this one's enclosed where it has a bug net and a rain fly, and so it works just like a tent. And they have some cooler ones now too out there. So you can look up more on Hammock Tents. On our blog, we have some stuff specifically related to camping with hammocks. We're also going to have a lot of this information plus a lot more on the website with downloads, so you can get all of this detail written for you, so you can go back to and reference it. And if you're not already, go ahead and RSVP to this to the event, and we'll email it out afterwards. Okay, so she's got the tent up now, and so now she's putting the stakes in. You always want to bring a mallet, because you just never know what kind of ground you're going to encounter. Sometimes they go in really easily. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get it in. And there are different types of stakes as well. So these metal stakes that are, I don't know what they're called, but anyway, these are better for sand. Yeah. And these plastic ones are good also for pretty much anything. So there's different types. She's got the metal ones that typically, I don't have an example of that one in this box, but
Titanium, so they're super light.
oh, titanium super light stakes. So this is another example of, there you go. Okay. So after she gets the stakes in, we're not going to set up the rain fly today, but
I'll just lay it out so
okay.
they know what it is.
Okay. Let's see.
Tell them why they need to wait fly and why they don't.
Okay. So the rain fly is going to protect you obviously when it rains. So, but it also keeps the inside of your tent dry in the morning. If there's a lot of dew outside, the rain fly will also help keep your tent dry, because there's nothing worse than waking up to a wet sleeping bag. So even if the forecast is calling for clear skies at night, if you're going to get a drastic temperature change between the daytime and the nighttime, then you might have more condensation in the morning. And another thing to help with keeping the condensation out of the tent is using the guy wires that Kelly's going to set up on the sides of the tent. Yep. And so what that does is it helps pull the rain fly away from the tent, because if the rain fly lays on the tent and it gets wet, then that's when you run the risk of getting condensation into the tent. The guy wires are also good. You use them if it's going to be really windy or tornado warnings, like when we were in Tennessee a couple weeks ago. You want to make sure you have the guy wires set up, because it'll just give it a little bit more stability as well.
Did you say tornado warnings?
Yeah, we camped during tornado
running.
Yeah, early April we camped with some tornado warnings.
I'm just going to do a quick show here.
Okay. So she's showing you how to link the guide wires right now. So your tent comes with extra cord in it.
You can do it this way, right?
Mm-hmm. So she put it through the loops, and then when she put it towards the ground, that's where you're going to use a stake to keep it down. So you'll tie a loop and put a stake in. Okay.
All right. Who has questions? Anyone? You ready to go camping tonight?
Right here in Midtown.
Here we are.
We got everything we need. We've got Rico's right here that's got beer and wine and snacks too, so we're all set. So once you have your shelter, then speaking of food, you might want a campfire that you can cook over. And you see we've got the Dutch oven here. So now Kelly's going to show you how to set up the campfire. What you're going to do is you're going to start with something to ignite the fire. So right now we've got a paper towel there. It works really well if there's some oil on the paper towel. It'll just burn a little bit slower. Or Fritos. Okay. And so then once you have what you're going to ignite for the fire, you want to get little sticks. And I'm going to just pick from her fire. Little twigs and sticks and leaves, like usually whatever you can find. And each park is different, actually. So you need to check with the park that you're camping at to see if you're allowed to pull wood from the area. Some let you and some do not. Some want you to bring in your own wood and some want you to buy it within that park. The main reason they want you to buy it from within the park is because if you bring in wood from outside sources, you can bring in different pests and stuff that's not native to that area, which can harm their ecosystem. So definitely check with the park first and see. A lot of times you can buy it at the park. So start with the really small stuff and you're going to build a pyramid. If we were actually going to light this fire, we would have a lot more kindling there because your goal is to establish a good base. And you always want to keep that pyramid shape so that the air can flow through and really feed the fire. And then she's slowly increasing the sizes of the logs that she's putting on there. And so what we would do is we would light this and get it nice and hot for a little bit. And then usually how I know when it's ready to add like bigger pieces is this will collapse a little bit and you'll have a kind of like a base of coals. And you want just a couple more thinner logs in your TP form over the coals, and then you can start adding the bigger pieces of wood like this. And these pieces are really good because they have all these, if it has frayed edges, they're going to catch faster. So it's going to help make sure that the wood catches. Because if you put too big of a log on a fire that doesn't have a good base, you're just going to smother the fire, and you're never going to have the fire.
Yeah. Lots of ventilation, lots of air.
Lots of ventilation. And then once your fire is established, you want to keep adding logs in that same format, 2 at a time in a TP, because that'll keep the flame. If you want a fire, if you want a hotter fire, you don't necessarily need the flame because the coals are hotter than the flame is. So you can, if you lay, and I'm going to mess up her nice teepee now. Well, if you lay it, that's a strong teepee, Kelly. Good job. If you lay it directly onto the coals, then the log you added, it might give you a little bit of a flame, but it's more going to turn into coals and make your fire hotter. It's kind of like the old westerns where they're sleeping next to the fire and they just poke the coals. Kelly's got the poker stick.
Roll over and poke it.
Rule number 1 is find a poker stick and don't put it in the fire to burn, because they're hard to come by. And what you're going to use the poker stick for is as the wood burns, it's going to start to collapse, and you'll just use the poker stick to readjust your flame and give it more air.
She's had it for years.
You broke my handle. No, I'm just kidding. That's actually my poker stick from my backyard fire pit. So I was like, don't lose it. Okay, so that's how anybody have any questions? Yes.
Wait, so you're saying that in addition to the wood, you would put coal on top of it?
Coal? No, sorry.
Hang on. Let me repeat the question.
Okay.
So the question was, if in addition to the wood, you actually put coals in there too.
No, yeah, you don't put coal. You can put coals in there if you're doing Dutch oven cooking, but what I mean is that first layer of kindle and the smaller logs, those are going to turn into your coals for your fire. So they'll be bright red at the bottom. The bright red stuff is your coals, and you can spread that out. Once you get a good base, you can start to spread it out to get the heat of the fire to expand. So, yes.
Do you let it keep burning when you go to bed?
The question is, do you let it keep burning when you go to bed? No. Never leave an unattended fire. So what you can do is when you're going to bed, spread out everything. I usually pour water on it just to be safe. Now the top layer will ash. It doesn't necessarily have to be completely out. That bottom layer a lot of times stays warm. So in the morning you just group it back up, and a lot of times you can start the fire more easily. But you shouldn't see any red ambers. You shouldn't have any flames going. If you've got big logs that are burning, definitely douse those with some water and then spread it out to help put out the fire.
And when you leave your campsite, like if you're packing up and going, make sure you spread that out. You put dirt on it, put water on it. I mean, you want that thing cold. You want to be able to stand in it with your feet because, you know, we've had some fires and fire problems. Even though we're out of drought now, you still have to be super careful about that.
Yep.
All right. Okay, bring over your Dutch oven.
Okay. Yes. So we do a lot of Dutch oven cooking when we camp. So I do a lot of Dutch oven cooking when I camp. Kelly does not. And so basically what we have here is we've got a tripod. This is my little Dutch oven. We make brownies, chili, pizza. I've made pie roasts. Yeah. And so when you're Dutch oven cooking, it's actually pretty difficult to do over the fire because you need a lot of heat to make it happen. So, and it depends on what you're cooking too. So if you want to bake something, you need to put coals on top of the fire. That could be coals from your wood fire or it could be charcoal. Either way, it doesn't matter. But if you're baking, you want even temperature on the top and the bottom. And if you want to simmer or boil something, you want all the heat from the bottom. And we've got tons of information on our websites about Dutch oven cooking as well, so you can download that as well. But the most important thing to remember if you're doing Dutch oven cooking over the fire is directly over the middle of the fire is not the hottest spot. Right, so you want to position. Let's say the wind is going towards you guys. Then that means the heat is going to be closer to you guys also. So I would want to have the Dutch oven over the hottest spot, and so you can take your hand also and kind of from a safe distance away see which area is hotter and then position your pot over that spot. And it changes, right? The wind's going to shift, so you might have to change it a couple times while you're cooking and add more wood. If there's no wind, you more than likely can't. Well, depending on how you positioned your logs, because if your logs are going in one direction, your flame might be going in that direction as well. But yeah, in general. So, any questions on Dutch oven cooking?
Questions on cooking or?
How do you actually start the fire? Do you actually use flame?
Good.
Yeah.
Good question. The question is, how do you actually start the
Well,
fire?
I use lighters or matches. Yeah.
Use the easy stuff.
Yeah, we use the easy stuff. This is car camping. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about backpacking. And when you're backpacking, that's when you might consider using, a flint stick or some other kind of fire starter.
Or just a smaller lighter.
Or a smaller lighter. Just depends on your preference, yeah. And bring like waterproof matches, or you can put matches with it inside a Ziploc bag just in case it does rain, so that you could.
Yeah, there are waterproof matches, and you should carry those with you because that is
The sun is gone now. The other thing about if you're planning to go camping with Dutch oven cooking, check the weather also, because if it's pouring down rain and you only brought food that you need to cook, you want to have a backup plan. You want to have some kind of food that you brought that you don't need the fire to cook with. So these are perfect. So
there's a backup.
Kelly's got a jet boil and then the instant food.
Macaroni and cheese.
You just boil water and you pour it in the bag.
Oh yeah. There is actually instructions for this. You want to get the right amount of water in there. There's a lot of sodium and a lot of calories in these. They're really made for backpacking, but they're super easy for camping. You don't put this in here. This is only for water. You're going to put your water in here. These containers are made to hold water, and then you just stir it, seal it back up, and wait 5 minutes or whatever it is. This will boil water in
a minute or two.
Minute and a half at the most.
Yeah.
So this is my idea of camping.
And this is mine. Okay, so
how about comfort at the campsite? Yes, comfort at the campsite. So a couple of things. One of them, Amy has her inflatable chair. You got it?
I don't think it'll come into the frame. you guys have seen these on TV. I didn't get a good amount of air in it anyway, but you just kind of run with it and fill it with air, and it's like a little couch that you can sit on. It fits 2 people, it floats. They're a lot of fun, but they do blow away, so I actually have this tied to the table so that we don't lose it. You don't want to be running, chasing all your stuff.
Another thing that's really easy to bring, well, for Amy, is Amy brings a little bit more than I do. So having some sort of table. Most of the campsites that you're going to use are going to have a table unless you're primitive camping. But bringing something along, a little folding table, whatever, it's going to make it a whole lot easier when you're cooking. You'll have your food on the table, and then you'll be able to serve on the actual picnic table. It just makes it a lot simpler.
Yeah, so we set up everything on the picnic tables or on this table. You can see I also bring 1 burners. This could also be our backup if it's raining or just for different things depending on what you want to cook, because sometimes it could be hard to cook in the Dutch oven, but backups. And then lanterns. It's always good to have a lantern, some kind of light source. We do lanterns and also headlamps so that you can get back and forth from your campsite to your tent. Yes.
So on the headlamp, one thing you should consider is getting a headlamp with a red light, because a red light will keep you from getting blinded and blinding your friends when you're talking to them like this and a white light's in their eyes. So a red light will keep your eyes, your night light vision. So, and they're real simple. I mean, it's just a click. It's just a white light or a red light. Get a red light.
Yeah.
With your headlamp.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
Any questions at all about camping?
Mark has a comment. He says, use a leftover rag with oil as a fire starter the next day.
Yes, that's a very good idea. So especially when you're Dutch oven cooking, when you're done cooking, what you do to clean the pot is you just get it really hot and kind of scrape everything out, and then you put a little bit of oil in it, but you don't want a ton of oil. So a lot of times you just take a paper towel and rub it on the Dutch oven. Save that oiled up paper towel and then use it as your fire starter the next day, because it'll burn slower to ignite your Kindle in the fire. So it just helps than just having a dry napkin. The dry napkin could actually fly away as well. You light it and sometimes it flies away, so you have to be really careful with that. But if it has oil on it, it's a little bit heavier, and then make sure your Kindle goes all the way around it so it can't fly away.
Any other questions? Anybody? I have a question. Well, what? Tornado warning. Say that? Tornado warning.
Well, find where the question is, what do you do if you get a tornado warning? You want to make sure your tent is set up very securely. Make sure you've used all of your stakes. I always bring extra stakes as well. And then also, make sure you know where the fallout shelter is.
Or the lowest place, right? Like, let's say you're in the woods. You're going to want to be in the lowest place out there. So, and it's probably not going to be your tent.
Yeah.
So, keep your tent healthy and safe, stake down like Amy said, and then go find that low space. We don't have a lot of tornadoes down here, but once you head north, it does happen. As far as rain goes, just make sure this tent, we didn't set it up completely correct. It's a little sloppy right now, but you set that tent up tight.
Yeah.
You're not going to get wet. I mean, I have been in there during just deluges. But if you don't stake it down, I'm pretty sure Amy mentioned this earlier, the possibility of that tent rolling or getting lost or going away is huge in a storm.
Okay. Oh, yes.
There's a big difference. There's different price tents.
Yes, there are.
I think the more expensive ones are much different or better.
It depends on what kind of camping you're going to be doing, right?
Can I repeat that real quick?
Oh, yes. Sorry. I have the microphone, so I think they can hear you. But so the question is, are there different priced tents out there, and are the more expensive ones better quality tents? And it really depends. And it also depends on what type of camping that you're going to do. Typically, yes, the more expensive ones could be better quality, but a lot of times they're more expensive because they're lighter. and used for backpacking, or they're smaller. And if you're car camping, you don't necessarily need that. So something cheaper is just fine. There's all the Coleman tents are just fine for camping if you're going to do car camping and you don't care about weight. So yeah, you can get tents anywhere from good tents, probably start around $100 and work their way up. If you go much cheaper than $100, you do run the risk of the poles breaking and it ripping a little bit more. It might not be waterproof. It might just be water resistant. So if you get a lot of wind or a lot of rain, then the cheaper tents, the really cheaper tents might not be a good option. But
something you should also carry in just your bag, in your tent bag, is they make these little sleeves that will they'll go over a pole.
Yes.
So let's pretend like this pole isn't what it is. Maybe it's a fiberglass pole and it cracks. Then you can take one of these sleeves, slide it down over that crack, and then you'll have a pole that holds until you can go replace that pole.
Yes.
So you can buy them. It's just like I don't know. I think it really is called a pole sleeve.
Yeah.
So, but you should keep it with you. One of those.
Okay, so we have tons more information on our websites, on the blogs. We have downloads, so you can get a lot more information about camping. We're going to stick around here and answer more of the questions for everybody who's here, and then also enjoy some beverages from Rico's and some snacks from there.
We mentioned we've got two types of tents here, and one of them over here, it's a Napier tent, and we work with Napier a lot. They make some really cool tents. This one, obviously, any of us here can stand up in it. It has a connector at the back where it actually goes around the back of an SUV and zips open so that you can keep all your car camping stuff inside your vehicle and be able to just reach it out. And if you don't mind, can we see how many people we can get in this tent?
Let me take one of these.
Let's see how many people we can get in this tent, but you got to take your shoes off.
Yes. So while they're loading themselves in the tent, coming up next week we have.
Show me how to get in this tent.
What are we talking about next week, Kelly? I forgot.
Stand-up paddleboarding.
Oh yeah, stand-up paddleboarding. Who's my favorite. So we're going to go down to Lake 288 and we're going to talk about stand-up paddleboarding. We'll have some boards out there for you to try. And then the week after that, we're going to talk about backpacking at Eleanor Tinsley Park. So come on out there. You guys want to go get in the tent? How many people do we have in there so far? There's lots of room. Go get in the tent. We have shy people who don't want to get on camera. All right, guys. So that's it for today. Like I said, check out the websites. And if you have any questions, leave them on our Facebook page and we'll get back to everybody. Thanks so much.